Get started. My name is Fernando Arroyo, and with me are my colleagues. We have Calvin Goldsmith, we have Natalie Dillon, and we have Travis Watson. And ours is a little bit different. It's not so much a new technology, but it has to do with the privilege that we have had in joining with the CS capstone students and Dr. Fenn in looking at a couple of things. These are the two things that we're taking into consideration during this presentation. Number one is, yes, so we have the... Yeah,
you pass these out?
There. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. You should have 10 there. The first thing we want to look at is some potential next steps for the commercialization of games, not just this game, but of games in general here. And this game specifically that we've been looking at, and some of us had the chance to play with, has to do with vampires, which is why we have a vampire icon, and other things too, not just. And then also potential for an institute of gaming at Baylor University, which is why the vampire is graduating from college. Now, a couple of things that I noticed immediately was that there's a lot of, it's opaque. It's difficult to look into Steam and to pull out analytics. Now, what is Steam? Steam is the gaming platform that for the past couple of years, the Baylor students in the capstone program have used to put their baby out into the world so that others can get to play with it, can get to engage it, and get to enjoy it as well. It was very opaque, and I found this interesting conversation at it was called the Russian White Knights Gaming Industry Conference, where the VP of Valve, the creator of Steam, which is the platform for games, said, well, we've had to shut down all of the sites that were giving insights into the marketing analytics for our Steam platform because of GDPR. Now, what is GDPR? GDPR is the global data protection standard regulation that has come out recently, which says that businesses have to be able to identify your private information. If you had any dealings with them, has to be able to hide that information or show that information or give proper access to that information or delete that information. If you said, take it all off, I don't want it, I don't want any of it on there. You have to be able to do that. Because of that, a lot of these third-party analytics organizations' websites have not been able to fulfill those GDPR regulations, so they had to shut them down. Valve is saying, we're creating a tool for you, which that's the first incredible opportunity there is to keep our ear out and our pulse on that, not only for Valve because of Steam, but also other potential platforms that will be taken into consideration today. We're going to talk about the gaming industry. We're also going to talk about next steps for institution development. And then we're going to end with 3 recommendations on how you can align and advance those two institute and game development opportunities.
Yeah, so if you look at some facts about the gaming industry, it's a huge industry that's supposed to grow to $90 billion by the end of 2020. And it's something that has been evolving the way that people play games. So now a lot of people don't actually buy physical copies of games. It's a lot of downloading or streaming games. And so that's why companies like GameStop are probably about to go out of business. And due to that, companies like Valve and their Steam platform have really been blossoming. As you can see, they have a lot of users. And the success of Steam has kind of spawned off game stores like that are online based and you just download them. The biggest game right now is Fortnite, and it has 250 million registered users, which is insane. And it saw massive growth in this past year, and it's been out for over a year now, and it's still huge. And then the rise of Fortnite and games like that have led to kind of a change in the way games are marketed. And so there are these big content creators that are on YouTube or Twitch or whatever kind of website you use to watch games, and they have a lot of power. So you even saw kind of a competitor to Fortnite came out recently called Apex Legends, and it's rumored that Ninja and other big content creators like that were paid millions of dollars to just play and stream the game for a couple days, and that was massively successful as that game can kind of compete with Fortnite and its active users. Now, the games that are going to be coming out of Baylor aren't going to be big games like Fortnite or Apex Legends. They're going to be kind of smaller indie game titles. So how can we compete with games like that? So I think the biggest thing to look at is taking risks with gameplay. With less money, the game has to stand out in some kind of way. There's this game called Minecraft. I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard of it. Believe it or not, it was made by one person at an indie game studio, and its graphics are terrible. And so graphics and fancy mechanics don't necessarily mean everything to a game. It don't mean everything to a gamer. I think that you can experiment with different ways to make games and make them unique and sell them, and people will buy them as long as the game is good. Also, a big thing about that indie games can do to compete is be community-based. So if you can build a community around your game and take the input from them and constantly keep updating your game, taking that community input, you see games like that are updated monthly that might not be like the biggest games, but they take what the community says, that small community that loves that game, and they take what that community says and input those changes into the game, showing that they really care about their community and their fans.
All right, so let's talk about some money. We have all these great ideas, but we can't implement them without some money. So I researched some grant and funding options. Because this is more of an indie game, there's a lot of indie game funds, specifically Indie Fund, which you apply to a board of investors who invest in video games, and they will set you up with the right investors or with the right support to get the funds needed. IndieCade Foundation, very similar. The grant types of money that vary each year depending on the funding they are available, but IndieCade is partnered with a lot of the big video game conferences and festivals, and also partners with academic institutions, which would be great partnership here at Baylor. And then government art funds. So in 2011, the art funds actually stipulated for the government that video games are considered media arts. So here's some of the grants available for that and the money associated with it. Now there are specific stipulations for each one. So going further, the video game might have to follow those guidelines to actually apply for those grants. And then Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a great crowdsourcing area, and in the handout you have in front of you are some of the graphs and money associated with Kickstarter. Unfortunately, Kickstarter has seen a decline in money in the last few years. It doesn't hurt to put it out there, but I wouldn't say it's the best end-all be-all way to raise funds. So potential investors, how else can we get some money? So they mentioned Steam Direct is a great platform for building that community, for getting reviews, for earning some money. Who knows where it could take off? A lot of publishers and design studios are looking at Steam, seeing what's out there. So then talking about publishers. Publishers is more like a commercial route for getting money, similar as you would if you had a book. Going to a publishing house would be similar with the video games. We recommend a mid-sized publisher because they're able to deal with more indie video games than some of the bigger ones who specialize with the top name studios. And then especially with talking about the institution part of it, really honing in on alumni and donors here associated with the university. There's so many strong connections with people who know important people connections, but as well as willing to give back to their alma mater. So now I'm going to talk about or pass to Calvin so we can talk about how other institutions are doing what we want to do.
So when we research these top gaming, programs at these top colleges, the one commonality across all these schools was the fact that they had access to a big studio. And so I have here USC and the University of Utah. USC is lucky enough to be based, obviously, in Southern California. And between there and the Bay Area, which is San Francisco, that's where a lot of studios kind of have their base of operations. And so they have access to these studios on a truly regular basis. And so each year they have what is called the USC Games Expo, which is where all the gaming students kind of have a opportunity to show off what they have been working on as far as the game and have demos of it. And so studios can come out, students can come out, and any gamers can really come out and try the games. And with Utah, it's kind of in a, unique spot, kind of like Waco, where it's not really in a big market as far as gaming. It's in Salt Lake City, which is growing to some respects, but isn't huge at the moment. And they are very close with EA, which is the maker of Apex Legends and a lot of sports games like Madden. And so it's a very big studio, a very prestigious studio. And the great thing about these two schools is that their students, like while they're still in college, they have the chance to get great internships and get guidance from these people who are truly at the top of their fields in what they do. And that experience and those skills that they gain at those internships, they can apply to those indie games that they're making during the school year. And that's really great experience because they can form those networks, but also own their skills. And I kind of compare this to, I guess in high school, I played sports, and a big part of that was talking to college coaches and choosing where to attend school. And so coaches would come recruit you. And that's really is a kind of similar to this. It's every year you get better and better, and you have more options as far as post-high school or post-college. You have a chance to go work somewhere that is prestigious because you have earned that and honed your skills each summer or each year for sports. And so with that also, another great area for indie gamers is these gaming festivals. And so PAX is a big one. And they have something called the Indie Mega Booth, which is really just a place for all the indie game developers to go and, I guess, meet with publishers and meet with fans and get their product out there and see what's working and see what's not working. And actually the biggest indie game on Steam, which is Risk of Rain, I believe, was actually found by its publisher at one of these gaming festivals. And so that just proves that if you can form those networks and get your game in front of the right people, then anything's possible. And so those are just the two really, I guess, big things that we found from the academic side, but also from the exposure side as to how to get your product out there and what it takes for a gaming program at a school to really get its feet off the ground. That's a fact from that, though.
All right, so to recap, very simply, we're looking to commercialize the game or games that come after this one. And two, to look at potential for the institutionalization of a gaming department or program at Baylor University. A few key first steps. Number one, commercialization or market analysis, there's different ways that you want to call it, would be really, really important at the beginning of a process, the beginning of the game development process, to begin to inform the kind of outcomes that you want at the end when you start trying to sell it. Two, to start considering strategic partnerships and partners as goals, their own strategies, their own KPIs, key performance indicators, like what is it that they measure, and see if any one of those things can align with the development of our games or the development of our program. And then thirdly, to take what happens out of those things and do it all over again and make it better, and make it better, and make it better. Maybe we need another relationship, a different relationship, a better relationship, or maybe we discover new aspects of our relationship with the studio, the publisher, the business partner that we hadn't thought about before, and take advantage of those synergies and do it all over again. But these are the three main ideas that we want to put out there as baby steps to start bringing the game forward and bring it towards commercialization and to bring the program forward to the next step of possibility.
Thank you, guys.
Professor Norris, we're doing the question.